Hello, let me talk to you about book book challenges where it's like how many books can you read in a year? How many pages can you read in a year? And the side debate of should a small little novella count as much as reading War and Peace? It's like all this sort of stuff, which spoiler right up at the front, I really dislike. I really dislike all this stuff. I think it originates maybe at school, where I remember over summer vacation there'd be a thing. The school that I went to had a thing of like, oh, here is a big list of books. How many can you read during the summer? And if you documented it, you got your parents to sign something that said, yeah, yes, the little J read all those books, and you'd win a prize or something like that. And I was a bookish kid, little freak who was far more happy in the bedroom reading than I was outside playing or getting any sunshine, or God forbid talking to anyone. So I did love that stuff as a kid. And I just you're a kid, you just inhale book after book after book, you're just sucking it all in. um and that was me as a kid, where I it was fun reading. It wasn't school reading where you had to stop and be like, have to write an essay about something like that. I laugh because I think about how I am now. It's like I've turned my booktube channel into basically, now I get to do book reports on all my books. Isn't that awesome? So, and this perhaps shows where I have this disjuncture, because now it's the internet age, and we have young adults and we have old adults who are all doing there's a big prevalence of doing kind of reading challenges. How many books did you read this year? Reporting in, making it as your goal of like, how many more books are you going to read going forward in the next year? And people having these kind of dick measuring contests of like, how many books did you read? Oh, I read this much. Oh, I read this many books. And it's one of these things of like, Goodreads has their challenge saying, oh, one of their helpful little gadgets is like, set your challenge for how many books you're going to read this year. That it continually pops up in my face when I go to Goodreads, just logging what books I'm happen to be reading at the moment, because I'm old and I can't remember. But, and this is Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon, who's, surprisingly enough, Amazon wants you to buy lots and lots of books. So them pushing this whole, oh, you should read more books, is a little self-serving. But, I would argue that it isn't really necessarily in an individual's reader's best interests to structure their reading around how much can I read in a year? How much can I cram in, being the big uber goal that you can track. And I mean that's the one attractive thing with it, is this is a concrete number that you can track. You can count how many books. But the thing is with that, I think getting obsessed with, or focusing on making that the guiding principle of how you read, is missing the point of reading. I would argue. Starting out with, first off, quality over quantity. You're reading a book so fast so you can get to the next one, that arguably means you're just going to miss out on what the actual book was about. You're going to miss out the beauty of the book. You're going to miss out, on enjoying the book if you're just inhaling it so fast. And this is not me saying somebody who can read really fast isn't going to understand a book like me, who reads slowly. No, that's not the thing. But if you're constantly pushing yourself at your upper limit to read as fast as you can, to inhale as fast as you can, even if you're a fast reader but you want to read faster, or me, you're a slow reader but you want to read a slightly faster, it's putting that pressure on, to taking away that time that not necessarily, which could be used to actually kind of like stop and get the book, which I guess goes to my next point of doing this whole thing of the number of books, using that as your focus. You're encouraging shallowness versus immersing yourself in a book, of having that pleasure of living with a single book for an extended amount of time. it's a different experience. And I mean, this isn't to say, oh look, there's some books that are trashy, fun adventure books, which are they're basically designed. You're supposed to kind of inhale it as quickly as you can, and it's fun and it's adventure, and it's not something that's going to particularly last with you other than a happy feeling of that. But there's other books that I read as well, because try to have a varied diet, where it's like, no, this is a book that I want to stop with, and it's like I want to think about this. I want to pause here and like, wow, what's going on here, and think about it. And that's not going that arguably is going to be lost if you're thinking, yeah, but I got to get to my next book. I got to get all my pages in for the day. People, with some people having spreadsheets saying like I have to get this number of pages done, is like that's putting this kind of a outside pressure on yourself. It's outside of maybe a book that's saying, no, stop and think about this. Challenge it. This book might challenge you. And if you're too busy to stop and accept the challenge, you're losing a major thing out of the book. And this goes, I mean, it's the internet. So we all have trackers now. This is an easy way of tracking so you can watch what everyone else is doing. And it becomes a horse race. Instead of focusing on a book, you're focusing on, oh, that person over there, they've read 5 books this week, and I only read 3 books this week. Oh, I gotta speed up. It's kind of the horse race thing. It's like gamification. We find ways to make things into games, games where there's scores, and the score is how many books you read, and the person who's read the most number of books has won. But it's like, have you won? What you've done is you've allowed this weird tracking system to mold how you read, potentially what you read. There's all this controversy over, oh, you just read short books. That doesn't count because I read long books. And it's like, that's not particularly what should be the reason why you're picking one book over another. It's like, oh, I'm at the end of the month, and I want to get this number of books in. So instead of reading this big book, I'm going to read all these small books. It's like, you might want to read those small books, and there might be really deep, wonderful pieces of work, though you're going to read them as fast as possible to get to the end of the month. You're not going to stop and consider it. So that seems like you're letting this weird system take over your reading for you, which is nonsense. I think, in my humble opinion, and there's a sidebar on this of I'm talking in BookTube, that little weird subsection of readers on YouTube, where there's a further thing of demands on people who are making videos that like, oh, I have to read a lot because I need to have stuff to report on to my viewers who are going to want to hear the new discoveries or the different books that I've read. And so you'll find that kind of a pressure. I know there's the odd time, even me spinning off in the weird orbit, I feel that every once in a while, that kind of like, oh, you should have more stuff to report on. It's like, oh, and then you're apologizing because it's like, hi, yeah, since last month I'm still reading the same book. That's kind of boring content, isn't it? People aren't interested. People want the next thing, which is just another weird kind of another layer on top of this kind of weird game horse race. I guess a horse race is a kind of game where you're just going fast, but it's like, why are you doing it? Why is it doing anything for you other than you're scoring? It's like, the score is bullshit, dudes. The score is complete bullshit, and this is obviously God, I just, I should put a note in here. I'm like acknowledging that people do use these kind of reading challenges for stuff that actually does align with what they want to do. There's somebody who wants to really get into a genre that they like, or has they've ground to a halt and just can't get themselves to read anymore. They're not finding the time to read. And this is a useful tool to say, hey, I want to find time to read. And a part of doing that is going to say, okay, I want to read a book a week or something, or I want to read a book a month, and saying, okay, I'm going to read 12 books by the end of the year. And that's a goal. And yeah, it's giving yourself time. I think it's where I get the trouble, is where it seems like it's just people are just consuming it, just passing through them. And that sort of thing where it's like, I think you're losing the point of why of reading. At least you're losing my point of reading, which is why I don't do it. I guess that's the other thing, is just like, I wanted to make this video because I do feel the pull of that. I do feel like, oh, why can't I read as much as X? Or, why, I don't have but it's like, I need to remind myself. This is mostly just a reminder to myself that I read because I love to read, and I love that the experience is often slow, and is got there's an equal amount, if not more time, is me away from the book, thinking about it, trying to figure out my reaction to it, trying to figure out the book. I mean, a part of this is, what's my comprehension level? It's probably a lot slower than people who, because I've seen people who are very quick readers who, yeah, yeah, they've got that comprehension level, that kind of deepness a lot quicker, which is great for them. I know for myself, when I feel that pull of like, oh, I should be reading more, it's like, no, I should be reading slower. I should be reading as more deeply. I should be pausing, because that's the point of reading. That's the point of reading. Counting the number of books isn't the point of reading. I am somebody who just like that. I'm always going to be reading, and I do also struggle finding those times to read, and having to remind myself, oh, this is the really good part of life for me, that this getting the reading done, that is one of my goals. It's like, make sure I have more time to read. But it doesn't, the whole thing of reading fast and reading a whole bunch of books is besides the point, is just completely besides the point. My best experience of reading so far this year was a single novella, which over the course of a couple of months, I just kept on going back to and back to again and again. And I documented that on my channel. And that was probably the best experience I had for this year so far. This early in this year, it's February, or maybe it was last year. God, it was last year. That was my best experience last year of reading, and it's still there, present in my mind. And I don't think it would have been if I had said, oh, I'm going to read 20 novellas in the month. I think I would have lost the novella that I actually did work on, and I don't think I would have had as significant of a memory. It would just have been a rush challenge, versus saying, no, I'm going to slow down. No, I'm going to really consider all this stuff. Authors spend their whole lives working, uh, building up a knowledge, building up kind of the rich texture of their works. In a lot of cases, I mean, and this is a certain kind of work. This is maybe me, but it's like, there's so much you can get out of a work by just simply slowing down. And that's I guess slow reading is my plea. It's like, it's like, yeah, maybe have a little goal that's like, I'd like to, what, I don't know, goals or whatever. Screw it. Just stop and read. All right, I'm going to leave it there. This was a silly video.